Hey everyone, I just wanted to do a quick edit video here. It's been a while since I've sort of shown you my process. I think some people sort of overlook the fact that we have a lot of these tools here, and the tools are not just fluff, they actually do really cool things. So I'm just going to show you an example on this image here. So this is just an engagement session I just did up in New York. Let's do M1, which is my favorite. Whenever I have front light, or honestly, most of my shoots lately, just because it's so bright, I'd end up doing either shadow hard or highlight soft. Highlight soft is basically just like very open shadows. Actually, that looks really good. Very open shadows and very brought back highlights. It's like a sort of soft HDR or something. You just bring all the detail out of the highlights and the shadows. That looks really good actually, but I think I might go with shadow hard just to retain some of those shadows. And then I'm going to brighten it up a tiny bit. I'm actually going to fade the blacks because I love how this old Carvel sign and everything is sort of retro, and her glasses. It just has kind of like a 60s vibe. Yeah, I love that. So again, fade blacks, you're going to go from that to that. It just gives it a little bit more of an analog feel. And then lately I have been doing this down here, which is shadow and highlight tone. I love this. It just kind of adds a bit of the sort of toning that you see um, in a lot of film images. A lot of times it's caused from overexposure. So if you like overexpose Portrait 800 or Portrait 400 or even Fuji 400 a lot, you get sort of a pinkiness in the highlights. I don't want all of that in the highlights on this particular image. So what I'm going to do is go down to the highlights and the toning, and I'm going to go saturation instead of 9. I'm just going to go 7. And even just from 9 to 7, it makes it a little bit less crazy. So that looks great. And then I'm going to do grain medium. The grain preview in Lightroom right now is kind of broken. So what you're seeing here isn't actually what it would look like. You have to zoom in and it'll render like that. So yeah, that's the image. So we went from, let's see here, that to that, which is awesome. I love that. So you get a much more analog feel, and again, that's using a bunch of the tools. And most of the time, it shouldn't really require lots of use of tools to sort of make the image look good. And we wouldn't have to use all that stuff. But if you do want to get a more analog look and you want the styling of film, these tools really, really do help. We made this pack with Eric McVeigh, and obviously he's got a huge film background, and so that's why these tools exist. These tools exist so that we can get that film look. Um, and so yeah, that's one way to get it here. I'm just gonna quickly jump to another image. Let's go to this guy. It's already edited a little bit. Oh yeah, because I just sunk everything. That's okay, we'll start from scratch. So I'm gonna brighten this up. I'm gonna make the magenta not so magenta. And let's just go with the same thing. So M1, see, this looks great as is. It doesn't even really need much of anything, to be honest with you. But just to keep it consistent with the other picture I edited, I'll do shadow hard. I like that. It brings back some of the details. I'm gonna even brighten it up a little bit, warm it up. Let's fade the blacks. That also looks great. We'll do shadow and highlight tone. I love that. And again, I'm gonna go down to the highlights and go from 9 to 7 just to bring back some of the normal neutralness in the highlights. That looks really good. And what I would normally do now is just select everything in the entire shoot and sync like this and just uncheck white balance and exposure so I'm not totally messing up the rest of my images, but then everything else would carry over. And then that makes life so much easier. In fact, I have already done that with this entire shoot. And so if we quickly just go through, this is what I'm starting with. And then once I get to this section, if I edit like this, all I have to do is select everything here like this, sync, make sure white balance and exposure is selected, hit synchronize, and then everything is going to look correct. Now I haven't sorted this job yet, which is why we have all these shots of him blinking and stuff like that. Normally these would all be gone, but I haven't actually culled this shoot yet. So yeah. So let's just jump ahead to a different situation. Here's a wide shot, front lit. Let's reset. So this is sunk with. Actually, let's start with this. So I've already sunk this with the previous edit. So I've got the faded blacks and I've got the toning correct. Now it just needs the finishing touch. So brighten it up, straighten it out a little bit. And for this image, I'm gonna crop it to, not 8.5 by 11, 4 by 5, 8 by 10. And boom. What I might do in this image is clone out this patch if I can. I can't really do it that well. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, sure, why not? And then I'll come back in and do that. Perfect. That looks great. I love that. For this image, when people are a little bit farther away, I like to add texture because it sort of mimics, I find, what like a low resolution film scan looks like. That looks great. And I'm going to actually add some grain medium. Again, the grain preview is broken, so let's zoom in and take a look. Beautiful. I love that. That's great. So we went from that to that. Easy peasy. Let's go to this one. I actually edited for black and white just to get rid of some of these, whatever they are, trailers or cars. So what I'm going to do is straighten it out to begin with and crop it to 4 by 5. Beautiful. I'm actually going to do a black and white edit, and we're going to do MB6. I'm going to do highlight soft because that really brings back a lot of the details, because this is very, 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 very contrasty. And I'm also going to do, in the black and whites on pack 4, the split tone. And that just adds a little bit of toning in the highlights and the shadows, kind of separates everything. And again, makes it look a little bit more like an actual film print. You know, when you used to print in the darkroom, there'd oftentimes be a tone to the paper and stuff like that, and that sort of mimics that look. Let's add the grain, medium grain in black and white. It's different than medium grain in color. I love that. I'm actually going to even go rough grain. That looks great. So that's how I would edit that image. In color, it's very similar. It's just that the color to me is a teeny bit more distracting with that that parking lot there, but that's okay. Might brighten it up, add a bunch of grain, fix that grain preview, and boom. I like it, but the black and white is the winner. Gosh, when is Adobe gonna fix this grain preview? Okay, I'm gonna edit one more image. Let's do this one. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna brighten it up. M1, I love that. You could just leave this as is. So that's the thing, is you don't even have to overthink it, and I'd be perfectly happy to send this to a client. So, you know, if you like this, you can just stop right there. Again, I'm gonna do shadow hard, just bring back some of that detail. I'm gonna add the shadow and highlight toning. That looks really good. I love that. And what's happening here is it's sunset and there's a big cliff here. You can see we had to climb down this wall. And this cliff is all this very, very warm colored dirt, and the sun is reflecting off of that and then bouncing onto them, which is why they have such warm colors on their skin. And then we have such cool shadows before it gets any of that light, which is fine. I'm just going to leave that. I mean, some people think that's distracting, but that's what film would look like. So I'm going to leave it. I'm actually going to also fade the blacks. I love that. Gives it a nice look. I'm going to do the texture up to +15, add the grain. Zoom in to get rid of the grain preview. Beautiful. That's great. I love it. Okay. Let's actually jump here to this image. Love this. Shooting at 7.1. f7.1. Okay. Again, quickly, M1, shadow hard, darken it down. I'm gonna keep most of the warmth, just because it is sunset and the sun's peeking over that hill. So I really like the way that looks. Let's fade the blacks. Let's add the toning. I love that so much. Beautiful. Here I might just bring the blacks down to give it a bit more contrast. I love that. This image also really speaks to me in black and white. So I'm gonna also do a black and white edit. Usually I like MB6, MB5, I'll do MB6, bring some contrast. Brighten it up. I'm gonna come down here and do shadow hard, and I'm gonna go back up here and do split tone on the black and white. That looks great. I just love how we go from that, which is great, it's totally fine, but when you add the split tone, it just sort of adds dimension to the image. It makes them stand out a little bit more. And yeah, so anyway, that's the edit that I've done. I hope this helps you sort of realize what Pack 4 is like. I know I just did MB1, but M1 and all those images. You can use all the rest of them. They just have a slightly different characteristic in the highlights and the shadows and things like that. So, that's the only difference. But the process should be the same. And again, it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to overthink it. I just take that one sort of recipe that I created on the first image, sync the whole shoot, then I go through and cull, and then edit. So it takes me almost no time to edit a job at all. And then with the black and whites, same thing. I mean, you can just pick your favorite sort of recipe and then go from there. And mine changes shoot to shoot. Sometimes I like M5, especially if the greens are sort of like fluorescent and I want to tone them down. And yeah, so yeah, it shouldn't be rocket science. Should be pretty easy. Most of the work should be done by you in the camera. So that's important. If you're really struggling with these presets or any presets, I hate to say it, but it's probably not the presets. It's probably you. But that's not, not always the case. I'm wondering if I can give you an example of a difficult lighting situation that might be more difficult to edit. I think I can. Let's look here. Yeah. So this is an image that I liked. I just liked the way this looked as they were walking, as the couple was walking. Sort of reminded me of like an old English countryside. And so I stopped them. And this is a very, very, very abnormal situation in posing and lighting that I would choose. And the reason I did is because this is how someone who isn't a photographer would probably think. They would think, oh, that's pretty. Let me take a picture of you in front of this building. And on paper, if you were to show me, like, tell me what you were going to do here and shoot it this way, I'd be like, that's not going to look good. It's sort of poorly lit. It's very like spotty and splotchy. But sometimes when you do that on purpose, it just turns the image into looking very much like a traditional snapshot. And it gives it some like sort of authenticity. So that's what I did here. I just sort of had them stand here as if this was like a very casual snapshot from like a point and shoot film camera. And I even, again, I went to f16 to sort of emulate that point and shoot film, vacation snap style of even like a, disposable camera. And so let's quickly do M1. So as you can see here, because of the way I shot the image, it doesn't look good right away. And so this might be, if you're running into this situation where you click on it and you go, oh, this doesn't look good, it's probably the way you shot the image. And so this is going to require a little bit more massaging to figure out. That being said, this still looks great. I can work with this. So let's brighten this up. And here I'm going to go, let's just try shadow hard and see if it does enough. And then if we go to highlight soft, see it brings out the shadows even more. I don't actually want to do that. I think I just want to leave it with shadow hard because I like that it's a little bit more moody. I might just brighten the image up a little bit. I'm going to cool it down a little bit. I think because I underexposed it, it's pretty saturated. I like that a lot. We're going to go with faded blacks again. I like that a lot. I think the blacks are a little bit too faded here. So I'm going to actually just bring the blacks down like that. I like that. Let's add the film straight away, or the grain straight away. I'm going to click on grain, zoom in. Get rid of the grain preview. Perfect. I'm just going to warm it back up and add some magenta. Let's see what it looks like with the toning. Toning looks good. I might just actually only add the cool shadows. Let's see here. Do I want both? I'll go with that, and then maybe that, or just warm it up. Yeah, so if we just do the cool shadows, all I have to do is warm up the image a little bit, and I love that. And so we go from, kind of an image that's sort of blah and drab to something like this, which I really like. Sort of just reminds me of a point and shoot film camera snap. This would also probably work really well in black and white. So if we go over here, click here, it's going to carry the grain over from my last edit. And actually, just MB5, that looks great. That looks like a very like old school black and white film snap. So there you go. Here's another one that I've already edited. Same thing, M1, all the different settings. I love this. I just had him turn his head a little bit to get more light on it. And there you go. Okay, now that's the end of the video. I hope that helps.